And thank you for listening to Truth for Our Time. I am Tamara Scott. We hope you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home. If He's expected you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it somewhere in His Word. So we thank you for taking time out with us today. We're pre-taping this show, just so you know, 11/18/16, Friday the 18th, before Thanksgiving. But nothing should change as far as some of the things we're talking about. We're discussing the Electoral College, the process. So those are things that should not change for you over the holiday, and it allowed our producers and our staff to take time off over the Thanksgiving vacation. So thank you for allowing us to do that. I hope you had a good time with your family at Thanksgiving. I hope you had a peaceful time. We want peace across the globe, and sometimes we can't get it across the dining room table. It starts at home for folks. If those virtues you want in your candidates are values you train in your children. And at everything we want to see across the globe, we start at the kitchen table, the dining table, in our home. So I hope you had a blessed Thanksgiving. The media is now telling you that you shouldn't have talked about politics at Thanksgiving time. I never heard that when Republicans win. I only hear, or when Democrats win. I only hear that when Republicans win. You absolutely should. You should be talking, instilling values, talking about why and what's important. And if you're disappointed, then you talk about the peaceful way to voice your disappointment. And that's not by protesting in the middle of an interstate where people are going 70, 75 miles an hour. It's ridiculous. And we now, you can check last week's show. We had some great interviews with Representative Bobby Kaufman on his Suck It Up Buttercup bill, and State Senator Jake Chapman, who's come up with another bill for some heftier fines of those who want to stop commerce, who stand in the roads of traffic and create potential real fatal danger for folks. So today we are talking with Secretary of State, Deputy Secretary of State, Carol Olson. Thank you for making your way to the studio and joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And Dr. Alan Braun, thank you for making way to the studio and joining us.
Thank you, Tamara.
So we're talking about the Electoral College, and I believe is Don Cass on the phone. Don, thank you for joining us on the phone.
My pleasure, Tamara.
So we have Carol, the Deputy Secretary of State. She can give us the truth behind all the mystery of the Electoral College, what we're dealing with here in our state, the procedures. Don, you're an elector, and Alan is an elector. And just so our listeners know, our viewers know, I've talked to Polly Granzo, who is another elector. I think she was an at-large elector at the state convention. Don, how were you elected?
I was elected at the 4th District convention back in April.
And Alan, you were the 3rd District.
That's correct.
And we've seen the interviews on Facebook with James Whitmore. I think he was probably the 2nd District elected. I don't know who the other state at large state was, but I've talked to 4 of you now.
Kurt Brown is the other at-large.
Kurt Brown, have you talked to him?
Spoke with him briefly over social media.
Is he holding tight to his vote?
Oh, absolutely.
So that is 5 of you with James's interview, Polly Granzo's interview, Alan's here, you're here, and you've talked to Kurt. That's 5 of you that are going to hold firm for what the state directed you to do.
Correct.
All right, so let's just talk a little bit. Alan has a stack of letters in front of him that he's received. Don, what have you gotten in communication?
Over 1,100 emails, 10 letters in the mail, and 5 phone calls.
Pleasant, not pleasant?
Every one of them has been respectful. What you do have to remember is that if in any way there are threats made or anything like that directed toward the presidential elector, that's actually a crime.
Oh, I didn't.
They have to be careful how they do that. Because you're trying to influence an election via coercion, and that's a crime. They have to be respectful.
I hadn't thought about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, you could. I mean, if I were to receive some type of a threat, my first call would be to the sheriff. So, not that worries me, but it is illegal for them to do that, for anyone to do that.
And thank you for pointing that out. This is Carol Olson from the Secretary of State's office, and Chapter 39A of the Iowa Code does talk about election misconduct. And you're absolutely correct that attempting to influence or to discourage a person's vote under duress is indeed illegal.
Great to point that out. So all these letters you guys are getting, that's not a threat, but they are trying to influence you. Is that even proper?
Oh, that is absolutely fine. That's standard political campaigning activity.
So I talked to Don Rochter, who is a political science teacher, instructor, professor at Central College for, I think, 30-some years. He was also an elector in 2004. talked to him this morning, Friday the 18th, and said, when you were an elector in 2004, did you get any communication, any pushback? He said, not so ever. Nothing from anybody. It was unheard of. So
I was an elector in 2004 myself, and I received a few pieces of mail, but nothing like I'm being deluged with now.
And those pieces of mail, were they trying to get you to go against the vote of the state?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so Dr. Alan Braun, you're the like to read the facts and the details guy. The Federalist Papers was what you spoke about when you got elected as an elector in the 3rd District. Was the Electoral College designed for folks to follow the directive of their state or to oppose it or to do what they wished?
As I recall from reading the Federalist paper, Federalist 68, it actually was designed to do both things. It was the general intent is to follow the will of the people, but it also talks about being a kind of a backstop in case somebody who is unfit for office is elected. It talked about demagoguery in particular.
Okay. Carol, you've been in the office for how long?
Just 2 years.
Just 2 years. Do you know in the history of the office, is this an issue usually in our state?
So I spoke with the Secretary of State's representative in the Office of the Attorney General, who is our legal counsel, and asked him what type of history there was in terms of this issue coming up before. And he went back to, looked in the files of all the prior assistant AGs who have served as counsel to the Secretary of State's office and went back more than 20 years, way more than 20 years. And there's not a single record in their files in regards to this topic.
Of people coming back, of people pushing back, of anybody voting differently than the state directed.
At least it had never come to the attention of the Attorney General's office prior to this.
Now, some of you will remember in 2012, there was an elector, and I won't name her because I'm not trying to embarrass her in any way, and I think she did the honorable thing. She decided she could not vote for the nominee as the state had voted. And so she just kindly removed herself, and there's a process in place. I don't know if the party then replaced her. I was not in my position as National Committee woman at that time, so I can't tell you. But she was replaced because she didn't feel like she could vote. So that's the alternative. If someone could not vote for that person, this is no longer about Don Cass or Alan Braun or Polly Gronzo or any of these other folks who have been elected by their peers to represent their vote. This is about exactly that. You are now to take forward the vote of your state.
My feeling about this is that, on the one hand, the Electoral College has never functioned to remove people that were demagogues the way the Federalist Papers talked about it. It is from the beginning has functioned pretty much the way it functions now. But when I stood up in front of the 3rd District Convention and gave my speech, I promised to support the party's nominee if I was put in the position to do so. And I feel like I gave my word. And if I felt like that for whatever reason I couldn't do that, I would step aside and let somebody else take my place.
Which is what happened in 2012, and I found that respectable.
That's the honorable thing to do. Otherwise, I'm breaking my word I gave to those 500 people that I stood in front of that day.
The letters that you have in front of you, are they from Iowa?
Not a one of them.
Are you serious?
There's a whole stack of them. Not a single one is from Iowa.
Don, the letters you're getting.
2 of mine are from Iowa. 2 of the 10.
2 of the 10 letters. What about the email? You have no way of knowing where folks are from?
Most of them are form emails, and one of the formats is you type in, "Hi, my name is so and so from Poughkeepsie, New York," or whatever. And when I see that, of course, they automatically get deleted. I don't have any need to read form letters. So there's it's an orchestrated nationwide effort.
And do one of you have the name?
Practically every state in the union.
Do one of you have the? Well, it is because, Alan, I can't remember what day it was you and I talked. I was in Dickinson County, so the date was at like the 19th. It was a Monday, October, maybe the 17th, and I had gotten a phone call from someone the Saturday before, and I can't remember his name, and it's probably just as well. And he was orchestrating. We hadn't even had the vote yet. And he was orchestrating the way that we could undo, if Donald Trump won, the way we could undo that and take it away from the voters. You want to talk about creating a riot and giving people an opportunity to protest in the streets and have a backlash. And it was exactly this. He was wanting to have the electors not fulfill the obligation of carrying forward the directive of their state. So you called me 2 days after that. It must have been when you started getting your information, or you had the inkling that you might get information. And I don't know what, he wasn't particularly with the group. It's not the Stop the Delegate vote or Free the Delegate vote, but I think it's part of them as well. I really do.
Yeah, I haven't gotten nearly the volume of stuff that Don has, or that a couple of the others had, but that's simply because I don't have a Facebook account. And I think that's the way that a lot of this stuff is coming to people is through Facebook emails. And I deliberately got off of Facebook a year ago for personal reasons, and I'm really glad that I'm not on there now.
You freed yourself. Free the delegates, you freed yourself. All right. So when we come back the next segment, I don't want to try and divide it up. We'll talk more about the Electoral College itself and why we have an Electoral College and the difference between the popular vote versus the electoral vote. Because now we have so many people on media attacking it, and well, I'll just show you, for those of you who are watching and those of you who are watching the link later, this nice hefty book. Actually, I should sit on this, because there are times I come in here and I sit on a booster. This is about the size I need. It's the Electoral Vote Equal. Every vote equal. Every vote equal. It's about 2 inches thick and about the size of, it looks like a Bible, about the size of a Bible. And this is what they were, I think they've mailed these to every state legislator. This would have been back 2008-ish, 10-ish, even up to 2012. They mailed these to the state legislators. That would be expensive. And they are trying, this is a movement. This is not something new. This is not something organic. This is not, I don't care who your elected official would have been, your nominee, your presidential nominee. If it would have been a conservative or the right, this is the movement that was out there that is trying to work against the Electoral College. And so I'm just going to caution you on that. We have Electoral College for a reason. Let me just show you some of the other books for those of you here. Securing Democracy, Why We Have an Electoral College. It's edited by Gary L. Gregg II. And it's got an introduction by Mitch McCoy. From the little bit I've glanced through it, it seems to be okay. Another one, Enlightened Democracy, The Case for the Electoral College, Tara Ross. You can go online right now and find from Prager University, Dennis Prager. They have a video, 4-minute video, with Tara Ross talking to you about the Electoral College. And it's a pretty easy way to read up on it. She wrote this back in 2004, and I interviewed her back then. And so it was under attack. We knew it was under attack clear back in 2004. And then I have another one here, Who's Counting? John Fund and Hans von Spakovsky. And I don't know enough. I won't say anything about this book because I've not read through this one to tell you. But I'm just telling you this is nothing new. Our founding fathers, let me see if a little bit I can. Our founding fathers considered and debated a direct popular election of a president and decided such a system did not gain much support at the convention. The founders were simply undemocratic and distrustful of popular votes. The direct popular election for president was subject of 2 explicit votes at the convention. Both occasions it was overwhelmingly defeated. They saw, we've talked before about how wise our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, the government form that was set up. We are the only government constitution, I think, that's still in. From its date, we are the now oldest constitution still actively being regarded as governing law. Any other country that had one at that time, there have been revolts, there have been, they've redone their constitution several different times. But the wisdom, and I would tell you the divine inspiration that went into this, is the only reason that we still have this governing document unblistered, uncontaminated, though it has been greatly ignored by the last administration and some other administrations as well. So when we come back, we'll talk about the Electoral College and the popular vote and what the difference is and why we need to hold on to it with Deputy Secretary of State Carol Olson, Dr. Ellen Braun, elector, and Don Cass is on the phone line as an elector. We thank you for joining us on Truth for Our Time. Stay tuned. We'll have more for you at 99.3 FM and Webcast One Live Studios right after this.
going to talk about the National Population Compact.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza, and it's got Graziano sausage.
Say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And thanks for staying tuned with us. You're listening to Truth for Our Time. Tamara Scott, as we help you live God's Word in today's world. I hope you're not too full from Thanksgiving. I hope you're starting your Christmas shopping. I hope you are even more preparing your heart for Christmas and the meaning of Christmas, and the fact that you'll be gathering hopefully with your family and your friends during the season. And if you've never done Advent I think starts maybe even this Sunday. So a great chance for you to just dig into a personal devotion time with some Advent studies. They're online. Noelle Piper, John Piper's wife, does some great Advent studies for you. And of course, our Lutheran and Catholic friends always have great Advent observations as well. So we are in studio. Deputy Secretary of State Carol Olson is with me. Dr. Alan Braun is with me, and Don Cass is on the phone line. We're talking about the Electoral College, the process. There just seems to be a lot more attention. Unfortunately, there's a lot more ignorance. I happen to think that they probably used to teach it better in school when they taught civics and political science and how we were to behave and understand our system. So, Carol, the electors will meet. The Republicans elected their group. We have your Electoral College is based off of, and correct me if I'm wrong, it is off your number of congressional members. So however member Congress and your Senate. So we have every state has 2 senators.
Correct.
And in Iowa right now we have 4 congressional members. We used
That's
to have
correct.
5, so we had 7 electorals. Now we're down to 6 electorals.
That's correct. Yep.
The Democratic Party elected theirs. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if their superdelegates weigh in. It didn't seem to matter for Bernie what the vote was, so I don't know. I won't go there. Republicans, we do it in each district, and then we had 2 at large at the state convention, correct?
Correct. There were 4 congressional district conventions, and each one of those elected one elector. I was from one one of those districts. Don was from another, and then there were two others. And then at the state convention, there were two additional electors that were picked at large to stand in for the two senators. It's as you said, it's one elector per congressman,
right.
one elector per senator,
right.
And I think it's Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution specifically says that the senators and representatives may not be electors themselves.
Oh, they may not.
They are not allowed to be.
Okay, our walking encyclopedia. And the difference, too, is if we were choosing delegates to go to our national convention, which gives you somewhat of a vote in choosing your president, that's kind of based on your performance as a party, whether your party's in control of the House or the Senate or the federal, how many people you have elected to federal office, has play on how many delegates you get as a state. But choosing your electors, that doesn't come into play. Your party performance does not come into play. Each party both gets 6 in this state for elector. So now they will meet, is it December
19th?
19th.
And Carol, is it your office that sends out that information, or the governor?
That will actually come out from the governor. So the Secretary of State's office will certify the results of the election. And so the official canvass of these results of the election will take place on December 5th. And so then as a result of that election, we will actually certify the results of that election to the 6 electors. So they'll receive their certificate of election from the Secretary of State's office, and then the invitation to come to the Electoral College will be issued by the governor's office.
Okay. So the vote, do you expect it to change much between now and your canvassing completion?
No. The counties had their final official results on Monday and Tuesday of this week. They are in the process of forwarding all those results to our office right now, and we will take the next couple of weeks to officially tabulate all of those results, but it's going to be very close to what it was on election night.
And then this group meets before. It's never been done in secret or anything else, and so it shouldn't have to be, but are we now concerned about issues as far as safety or harassment or protest?
I'm not.
Don's not.
It's a public meeting. It's typically a meeting that takes place without a lot of fanfare, although it certainly could have some more ceremonial fanfare to it, and there will be a little bit of that, but it is a public meeting, so the public is invited to attend.
Okay. All right.
I anticipate there could be some protests outside the Capitol building, but I don't anticipate any kind of violence or anything like that.
I don't either. This is Iowa. So,
yes.
Carol, when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands.
Correct.
We live in a republic. Some people call it a representative republic. Some people call it a representative democracy. We live in a republic.
That's correct.
Help us understand, and I guess I'll open this up for anybody, but help us understand, Carol, I guess I'm going to go to you first, the electoral versus the popular vote. Why?
So it's a representative democracy. Our forefathers were very, very committed to states' rights and wanted the states to be the paramount structure of the government, that the federal government should actually be subservient almost to the state government under the strict Federalist Papers. And so in protecting states' rights and making sure that every state had an equal voice, there is a populist version to that also. That's the representative part of the Electoral College, so that every state has 2 votes that are representative of states' rights, but then they have also the votes that are representative of their population as reflected in the U.S. House of Representatives, and therefore the Electoral College votes.
Frank, do you want to put that photo up on the screen for those who are watching online? And if you are hearing this and you want to go back and look at it, you can find our archives. I don't always get them on the website, tamarascott.com, but we do have I do post them often on the Facebook page for Truth for Our Time. So you can see that map right there. As much as folks are fussing about Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote, look at the territory of that. Can you imagine living in any of that red and having the little part of the blue lord over you? And if we go with the popular vote, that's what's going to happen. The Dakotas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Iowa, Illinois, even with Chicago, there might be the exception for that city, but even when you get out Wyoming, Idaho, they would be what we call flyover country, what the liberals called us as uneducated white folk, which is offensive to say the least, but they're supposed to be the only ones who can call us names. But
deplorables.
Oh, deplorables as well. And I want to be careful because, Carol, you're here in a capacity, so we don't want to draw you into our partisan conversation. You stay on the straight and narrow with the Secretary of State's office. But if you look at that map, you begin to see all that red, Trump won. So these folks that are fussing, and has anybody heard the recent numbers? Because then I hear that he is winning the popular vote. So have we heard recently?
The last time I looked was a day or two ago, and at that point, Hillary was ahead by about 750,000 in the national popular vote.
I think that's correct. It's somewhere around 1 million the last I checked. But, and here's the thing, directly pertaining to why we have an electoral college in the first place. Iowa, I believe, has a very high level of integrity in its election process. I think it's very hard to cheat in Iowa, and it's relatively hard for people who shouldn't be voting to vote in Iowa. But I can't say that about places like New York, California, Illinois, places with high population centers where I know from firsthand accounts that the voting process is not well policed at all. In fact, it's very lax. So you can say, well, did Hillary Clinton perhaps win the popular vote by 1 million? Maybe, but were those votes legitimate? I can't say that for sure. And that's, states are in charge of their election process. And why should Iowa, who has a very, well-policed, well-regulated election process, have to be governed by high population states like New York and California, where they don't, and where their candidates really aren't going to have, the kind of candidates that are going to win in those states don't have the best interest necessarily of Iowa in mind.
Well, let's talk about that. If we see it in our own state, Hillary Clinton won the populated areas. Scott County, did she win Polk County? I'm assuming she won, is it Woodbury County that has Sioux City?
No, actually Mr. Trump won Woodbury County. He won Johnson County.
She won Clinton and Scott, Lynn and Johnson, Lynn, Story, and Polk counties.
So Trump won in the Woodbury in the Sioux City area.
Yes, actually
Excellent.
quite handily, I think. Yes.
Okay. So I'm bringing this up because the large in populated areas are usually your cities, your inner cities, your metropolises where you have a large number of public sector employees, often public union employees, and we already have a growing number of public sector employees that have an ear of their elected official anyway. Now you have them voting for the individual who's going to give them the best promises and benefits. Plus you have the inner city folks who need more programs, more welfare, more entitlement, more food stamps. So that's often, I think, why you see the demographics that go to the left in the cities. The hardworking folks in the rural areas who are self-sustaining, and this is not a hit on people in the cities because I know that there is both. There is both. Am I really stepping out on a limb here? But I just think that you can see why we have more of a Democratic vote in those cities. And I'll add this into it. There's usually a university or a college. And that often changes the vote of a community as well. And that would be my challenge to everybody out there who lives in a college town. You're supposed to impact the college and influence these young students. And instead, they're infecting your culture and your communities too often. We see that. All right. So did I take that down a trail? I see we have a phone line. Is it James? Frank? Is James on the phone? James, are you calling in from the Waterloo area?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you very much. We didn't get to talk before this interview. We were just talking about the letters and the phone calls and the emails that you all have gotten. Have you gotten? I saw in the article you've gotten several emails.
Oh yeah, I can't even count how many emails I've gotten. I can't not count how many Facebook messages on my business Facebook page, and I have gotten phone calls, and I have gotten letters.
And James, a lot of the snail mail letters that I have received at my office were actually addressed to you. And why they're sending letters to you to my medical office in Urbandale, I have no clue, but I've got a bunch of them.
Who's this?
This is Dr. Ellen Braun, one of the other electors who was in the 3rd District.
Okay, great. Great to meet you.
So you will meet him on December 19th. Very good. And so were your letters threatening?
No, ma'am.
Good.
Not overtly. I have been in the security business for 31 years, and I've been a private investigator for 21 years. And I know how threats work. And basically based on my professional opinion, they are not overtly threatening. However, I expect them to get that way.
All right.
Well, I'm James. This is Don Cass. I'm a 4th District elector, and I've had the same experience. Unfortunately, I'm also a Plymouth County supervisor, and people have been sending emails via the county web net, and my colleagues are getting the same. My colleagues on the Board of Supervisors are getting the same emails that I am, and my count of deleted emails at this point rests at 1,146.
All right. So we're going to have to go to. We're going to have to go to a break here, and so I want to take a little pause while I can. I just want to remind you, the last time that we had a president who had not won the popular vote was George W. Bush in it was the election with Gore, and he did not win the popular vote. Remember the whole thing, the Chads and everything else that went to court, and there wasn't running in the streets and protesting and everything else then, and there shouldn't be now. We'll come back. We'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. Okay.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do. What type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Thanks for staying with us. This is Truth for Our Time. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening on 99.3 FM, or maybe you're watching on Webcast One Live, or maybe you're watching the link off the Truth for Our Time Facebook page. But thanks for tuning in. Talking about the Electoral College versus the popular vote. It is a topic for discussion all of a sudden, and I would have to say, because we didn't use it as a topic of education in the public schools, if kids understood it, we wouldn't be here battling it now. If you do away with the Electoral College, and this is Tamara, if you do away with the Electoral College, the large majority of your country becomes flyover country. First in the nation will not matter. You won't get a shot at it. They're not going to worry about coming to Dakota, Iowa, Wyoming, Utah, Montana. A vast geographical area of states will become unrepresented. They will campaign in L.A., New York, and those fringe blue states that you see on some of those maps, those coastal states where you see the populace, and they will then make their campaign promises to everything those metropolitan areas want. It will not be anything that's going to help us in the farming communities or the agricultural areas. It's going to be whatever feeds the populated areas. And think that through. It will not be a balanced governing system for your nation. It's just a dangerous policy. Not to mention, David Barton from Wall Builders talks about the popular vote being in a democracy. We do not have a democracy. I call it a representative republic. Carol, you call it a representative democracy. But it's that representative process. You have a representative that represents you. And the difference is, as David says, government's not supposed to be fast-paced and reactionary in the heat of a moment. That's what we call back to mobocracy. That's what hung Jesus on a cross. When you stirred up the crowd and you were able to build a frenzy and create a movement that happened quickly. This is supposed to take time. Government is supposed to take time for emotions to subside, passions to set aside, and logic to set in, and long-headed planning of what's best for your communities and your state and your country. That's why we have this representative process that our founding fathers were so careful in planning and setting up, and why the Constitution, I think, is the longest operating document. I don't want to say living, because it's not living in the sense that you hear progressives use a term that we can change it at every whip stitch. It is a document that there is a process to change. And Carol, you were saying if we wanted to move away from our electoral process, that would be an amendment or a change to the Constitution?
That's correct, because the Electoral College is set up in the Constitution, so to change the Electoral College would require a constitutional amendment.
We know how difficult those are to pass, although we've passed, 28 of them that we have. So it is doable, and we even came back and undid one after we did it, the alcohol one, the being dry. Alan, you say that there's a way around it, that there are states now with a compact.
There is a movement that got started, I believe, after the 2000 election, which was the last time before now when the popular vote disagreed with the electoral vote. It's called the National Popular Vote Compact. And what it is an agreement that each state makes by an act of their legislature where they agree to bind themselves and their electors to vote in accordance with the national popular vote totals rather than how this vote occurred in their state. If, for example, Iowa had signed on to this, which they thankfully have not, then the electors in Iowa would be required to vote in accordance with the national popular vote totals to the contrary of what the voters in Iowa said.
Yeah, you're negating your state. You're nullifying the people of your state's voice.
As it currently sits, 11 states have signed on to this compact, and I think they amount to about 175 electoral votes. One of the stipulations in the compact is that it doesn't take effect until there's 270 electoral votes available, and once that happens, if it happens, then then they've successfully done an end run around the Constitution and have effectively nullified what the Constitution says without having to go through the process.
The beauty of the United States of America was each state having its own governing body, having its own independence. The 10th Amendment we now see making a comeback. So I can't imagine with that in play that people would want to then nullify their state and go with this popular vote.
I can't really see why either. I mean, why would people in Iowa want to surrender their sovereignty on this subject to people in New York and California, which is what would happen?
So, Carol, if these states have put it through their legislature, now we've seen such a vast sweep geographically, some of them could pull that back out. They could remove themselves.
Certainly, any act of the legislature can be nullified by a subsequent legislature, and that's true across every other state as well.
So something to consider, maybe something we need to be talking about with our friends and neighbors to have them remove themselves from the. And it's
called the National Popular Vote Compact, and actually, it has actually been introduced in the Iowa legislature before. A former state senator from my district introduced it every year during the time that she was Stacey Apple.
Did she really?
Yes, she did really. I had lengthy email exchanges with her about that, and ultimately she quit responding to me because she didn't agree with what I was saying. But every year that she was in office, she introduced this. It never went anywhere, thankfully, but she was pushing it.
But that just shows how close it is. They had a majority as Democrats. Had they had a House majority and a governor, who knows how quick that would have been. Carol, anything else you want our listeners in Iowa to binding? We don't bind our electors.
That is correct. So in Iowa, our electors are not bound. However, it is important to note that our slate of electors are nominated by their respective political party. So we had 10 presidential candidates in Iowa. Each of those 10 presidential candidates had their own slate of presidential electors. And so those electors are invited to participate in the Electoral College based on the vote total received by their respective presidential candidate. And so they are nominated by their party, so they are bound by the rules of that political party.
So we don't have to bind them, but we surely will be looking at it if somebody steps aside. We've talked about threats. It's a federal offense. Don, you were saying if someone threatens or an elector.
Yes, according to state code, and I'm fairly certain that according to U.S. Federal law, one would have to assume that trying to influence the election process via coercion would be a federal crime.
And James, if one of you know this, feel free to pop in. What about if somebody tries to bribe you?
If you can,
that'd be a violation of state law.
The material ability to prove that someone tries to bribe you, then obviously that's a crime. And the first call I would be making is to the sheriff's office and the county attorney.
Well, that has not happened.
That hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened with me either.
There's no amount of money that would cause me to do something like that. No.
Is that James talking that there's no amount of money?
Don,
Don?
There is no such thing as an amount of money that would cause me to do that. I couldn't do it myself.
I have joked with friends that I was kind of hoping that Donald was finding out that I was going to do this and offer me $1 billion or something. I was joking. I would not accept it.
You might want to be careful about that humor, too.
I know. And I would not accept any amount of money or anything. I am going to vote for Donald Trump. People can threaten me. People can try to intimidate me. It's not going to work. They could offer me a bribe, and I would turn them over to law enforcement.
So we have 4 of you. I've spoken with Polly Gronzo, like I said this morning. So a good majority, we're safe in this state. And I think the other 2 are probably safe too. I just haven't gotten to talk to them as well. It's just I just don't remember a time in history when folks were coming after our system as they are. And I want you to remember, this is not just about somebody being unhappy that their candidate didn't make it. These folks are coming after the very process that our founding fathers set up with such divine intervention that it's still gone peaceably some 200 some years later. What a privilege we have to elect those who govern us in this nation peaceably, without bloodshed. And so to see folks come after this because they didn't get their way is just infuriating to me, if you can't tell. We've got to go to another break. It is our final break. We come back, we'll do a little bit of a closing session on this. Thanks for staying tuned with us. Truth for Our Time, 99.3 FM, webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And we thank you for joining us. Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time. As we help you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home, and there's so much going on right now. Deputy Secretary of State Carol Olson, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
My other guest, I want you to hang on just a little bit. Thank you. But Carol, I know she has another appointment yet to get. We thank you for giving your time to us today. I want folks to know the Secretary of State's office, you're so quiet, you just do your work, and you're nonpartisan. Everybody there is so good about being nonpartisan. But this past 2 years, you guys have been humming. People have been calling you, demanding things, wanting information. We had the caucus, which the caucus isn't actually a vote as far as the state. It's a party vote. It's a private vote.
That's correct.
So it shouldn't impact your office, but it did. Because people wanted the results from your office.
Our office is the official repository of all the voter registration data, and so we were kind of deluged with requests for information.
So thank you on behalf of this radio show, and behalf of the friends that I will talk to, for what you do in that office. Because it's not just that, it's school board elections, it's county elections, it's city elections. If there's a bond referendum, you're probably involved in those too. So thank you, because we do have, from what we know, clean elections here in Iowa.
We absolutely do have clean elections. Thank you for calling that out, Tamara.
All right. So before you run, Thanksgiving we just had, Christmas we're headed to, something you're thankful for?
As an election administrator, I am very thankful that this election went without a hitch. And then as a citizen of this country, I am so thankful that we live in a representative democracy under God.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you.
Nice to have you in studio. Come back anytime. All right, Dr. Ellen Braun, Don Cass, and James. Is it James Whitmore? Am I saying that correct?
Whitmer.
Whitmer.
And it's only James if I'm in trouble. You can call me James.
Very good. Well, I thank you for being here. Now, are any of you baseball fans?
Absolutely. I'm a Cubs fan.
Oh, aren't you a happy man?
I am.
Well, let me ask, and I was so glad to see them win. I'm not a big ball person, but I was so happy to see them win. And what a great series. What a well-played length. It was not a short series. Every game got played. Every inning got played, and a few extra innings after that. Mm-hmm. So can one of you tell me, total runs for each team, did they tie?
I don't know.
Oh, guys, you let me down. I believe
Cleveland scored more runs, but
The whole thing? Did Cleveland actually score more runs?
I think they did. I could be wrong about
Well, that might be even better. I had been told that there was a tie, and I was going to make a point. But if Cleveland scored more runs, it's even better.
That makes a better point.
It's
for
an
sure.
even better point because it illustrates the popular vote versus the Electoral College.
There you go.
If Cleveland scored more runs, but nobody's fussing and saying that they should get the trophy and that they should get the title, we understand how it works when we go in. We understand that if there's not a clear winner at 3 or 4 games, that we continue on.
Mm-hmm.
And it took every game we had, and the Cubs came through and won their World Series, even though Cleveland either tied or had more runs.
Okay, and there's one more thing I got to say. Okay. Now, Tamara, you're not old enough to remember.
Thank you. You're my friend.
Okay, you're not old enough to remember Jack Brickhouse. Jack Brickhouse was the announcer before Harry Carey.
I do remember Harry Carey. Okay.
Okay, he was before Harry Carey. He made a very famous statement. He said, anybody can have a bad century. It was only 108 years, okay? As Cub fans, we have to have faith.
Amen.
We have to have faith.
Amen.
And
Amen.
And we're glad that Carol brought out our one nation under God. And without God, as Ronald Reagan said, we'd be one nation gone under. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today, for joining in the discussion, and for volunteering to serve as the elector. Who knew what trouble it was going to get you into and what you'd have to deal with? It shouldn't be that way, but I thank you for doing so. We have just a couple minutes left, and so I want to give you this opportunity. Jim, we'll start with you. Something you're thankful for, or something you think about during the holidays of Christmas?
Well, I'm obviously thankful for Jesus and my salvation, which I could not earn. It was by grace through faith in Jesus Christ alone. I'm thankful for my lovely wife, my 3 children, and my 2 grandsons, by the way. I'm thankful for the talents that God has blessed me with, and I am thankful for this opportunity that very few people in the history of this country have ever had. 538 people out of 300 million get to do this. And I am humbled. And I am just absolutely thankful for that.
Very well said. And I don't know you, so I'm so pleased to hear your testimony. I'm sitting here all bally-eyed in the studio, so thank you so much for your testimony. Don, something you're thankful for or looking forward to at Christmas?
Well, I'd just like to say that even though I was called irredeemable by one of the major political candidates, I know that my Redeemer lives. And that's what I'm thankful for. Looking forward to Christmas with our new granddaughter that just turned 1, our first grandchild, and the Lord has blessed my family more than I can describe. So I guess with a humble heart, I have to say I have to thank God for everything I have this Christmas, because I'm truly blessed.
Dr. Alan Braun.
Well, I would echo what these other 2 men have said. I'm thankful that God has saved me and that He loves me. He sure knows I don't deserve it. And I'm thankful for my beautiful wife, my 8 kids, my 3 soon to be 4 grandchildren, and that I live in a country that where I can speak my mind and live the way that I feel like I need to live without being manipulated too much.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining me today, and I'm so glad that I asked you that question. I'm still weepy-eyed over here, but thank you so much for your service to our country, our community, to your families, and for sharing that with us here on air. Don Cass, Jim Whitmer, Dr. Alan Braun, and Carol Olson was the Deputy Secretary of State. And folks who are listening, keep these gentlemen in your prayers. Keep the electors in your prayers, Polly Granzo. And I guess I'm not going to give out the other names. I guess I can, because you're on the websites, right, guys? I don't have them in front of me.
We're all over the internet.
Somebody's put you out all over. Yeah, you are well sought out. I don't have the other names in front of me. Forgive me for that. You know one, Don, Kurt Brown. Yeah. And so there's only one I'm missing, and I don't know who that is. But thank you all for your service and for what you're doing. And for those of you out there, keep praying for them through this, and pray for the system, because as I told you, they're not the folks who are protesting this. And we know in our protesters, the ones out of Oregon, as we talked about in the show last week, of the ones that were arrested in Oregon, 70% didn't even vote. And yet they want to protest the whole system. So 200 plus years of peace, men and women who have died on the battlefield to protect the privilege that we have. Don't let others diminish it or destroy it or steal our hope and our joy as we move forward on the road to recovery with the Trump train. And we understand that salvation for our nation doesn't come on Air Force One, but the man who rides on Air Force One has a great deal to do with how much we can proclaim that salvation and that gift of salvation to everybody else. And we're thankful that in this case, it's Trump. Because Hillary fomented the war on Christianity, he said he will end it. And so I will tell you as well, I am thankful that I was able to be born and raised in a country where we could be taught the truths of God's word. The folks in China have the same liberties endowed by their creator, the same freedoms and rights, but they don't get to enjoy them because, one, they didn't give the glory to their creator in their governing documents, and their military has never secured them for them. It's just that simple. And many other countries have lost them, and we could too if we're not careful. I will enjoy my family, my children, my 4 grandbabies, and the love of Jesus in my home with a very loving husband who loves me. You've been encouraged. Now never be complacent.